good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, everyone, everywhere, depending on where and when you are joining us. We are so grateful that you thought enough of Africa Online to stop by. So let's just get into our show today. As we are closing out the month of October, which was also Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we will discuss domestic violence today. All month we were talking about STEW. Some people are talking about STEM, others are talking about STREAM. We talked about STEW, and we're going to close out with domestic violence. Did you know that on average, nearly 20 people per minute, that's 20 people, not an hour, not a month, but 20 people per minute are physically abused by their intimate partner? In the United States alone, that's 1,200 people an hour, 28,800 people daily, 864,000 people monthly, and 10 million, hear me, 10,368,000 people a year who are being physically abused just in America. We're not even talking about other worlds. We're not talking about other types of abuse. We're just talking about physical abuse. And while we have laws and protection against such abuses here in America, it's hard to fathom wrapping my mind around the numbers in countries like Africa and India, just to name a few, where abuses are basically considered normal, where a wife doesn't even have any rights. She's treated like property. Parents are selling off their daughters and, quote unquote, marrying their young daughters off to some old pervert, which is abuse. Now, while domestic violence seems to be on a rise, that bohemian spirit is coming down. Now, if you're tuning in on Facebook and you want to join the conversation, come on over here to Zoom. The ID number is 8595-832-5993. That's 8595-832-5993. I am your co-host, Ambassador Lisa Parks, and welcome to Africa Online TV as we discuss domestic violence. And now for the editorial of the day with my co-host, Professor Nicolas. How are you this afternoon, my brother?
Fine, thank you. Good afternoon. It's a warm fall day, and we're enjoying it. There was a light drizzle, but all the same, it's part of the life that we have to live. Okay, so let's hear what we have here today. It is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We are doing it because we need to, and we have to do it. It is Sunday, the 29th day of October, 2023. It is the 302nd day of the year 2023. So 302 days have gone by for this year. You know, there are 365 days a year. So we have just 63 days left until the end of 2023. Today is the 44th Sunday of 2023, on the 44th week of 2023 using the United States counting system, and it is the 37th day of fall. Ambassador Lisa, we still have 53 days before winter. So just keep getting those shovels ready, but make sure that winter does not come too early. So, well, we can delay it, can we? I don't think so. All the same, heard about the Statue of Liberty? Well, that is where we're going to start today. Whether your answer is yes or no, just know that the Statue of Liberty is perhaps one of the most precious gifts a rival turned friend ever made to another friend. The story began before 1889, but crystallized in 1889 when the French government, France, yes, you remember that country, it's in Europe, when that government packaged and donated to the United States of America an edifice that worked on, that built, and they called it the Statue of Liberty. On this day in 1886, then United States President Grover Cleveland officially dedicated that Statue of Liberty, which had been shipped in several boxes from France to the United States of America. It was a gift from the people of France to the people of the United States, marking the 100th anniversary of their independence, 1779, 1889, 100 years had gone by. That unique event, plus the awareness that these United States of America were built by people from different shores, brings us today together and brings us something called Immigration Days, or Immigration Day, Immigrant Day, actually. It is Immigrant Day today. Today is Immigrant Day. And of course, almost everybody on this screen is an immigrant. Almost, I didn't say all. So celebrating the melting pot that is the United States of America, National Immigrants Day brings to light the uniqueness of the background of the various cultures of people who now make up the diversity that is the United States of America. With more immigrants than any other single nation in the world, the United States is a place that has traditionally held open arms to those interested in starting a new life somewhere else under new skies, believing, believe it or not, that the grass is greener here than elsewhere. Well, why not? They call it land of opportunity. So today, with more than 45 million immigrants, or 14% of the total population, most people don't have to look very far back in their line of parents or grandparents to find someone who started their lives afresh in the United States of America. After the United States became its own independent nation in 1776, the 19th century brought with it a host of immigrants, including many Irish who were driven from their homeland by famine, as well as Asians who were lured to these shores by discoveries of gold, and of course, the oppression of Jews in Eastern Europe was another motivator for migration to take place, while most post-colonial injustice, poverty, and indifference in most parts of Africa and Central America, as well as Southern America, led many of us to more than see better opportunities in what is now the land of opportunity. Historians and other experts tell us that National Immigrants Day is meant to give a salute to those whose roots may come from somewhere else, but are now planted firmly in the United States of America. So on this 29th day of October, we raise a glass, ching ching, we have a toast, or by some other method that we use, we say, Happy Immigrants Day to you and to me, because we are 99% immigrants. Okay, I may exaggerate. All right, that being said, let's keep going. We may celebrate our common humanity today, aware of the many opportunities we have in this country, but we may also tear up and regret one injustice or other brought on us, on each other, either because of an urge to dominate or because we want to take control. Humanity seems to have been created to always dominate. We were told to go and dominate, but nature, not each other anyway. That's what mankind has. So we unnecessarily get involved in one injustice or another because we want to dominate, because we want to keep someone down. Today, Africa Online Media Corporation, in keeping with its own policy of doing justice and wanting to make sure that it keeps domination apart, comes to you today to say, well, let's get together today. Let us discuss what they call domestic violence. Domestic violence, in keeping with what the month has been. The month of October has been the month of domestic violence. And it zeroes in on the topic with the hope. That is, Africa Online zeroes in on the topic with as much awareness as we can raise, because we know that coming to these shores and living in this land, we have to do everything we can to make sure that justice, as much of it as possible, prevails. So recognized since 1989 as such, domestic violence is a societal illness against which we must all speak up and act against, because it hurts. Domestic violence, it hurts because it demeans, yes, because it makes people who should be our loved ones feel bad and feel shamed and shameful. To address domestic violence, the stigma that it has become and the stigma that it brings, that is, we need to get together. We need to be each other's keeper. We need to be each other's brother, each other's sister. And we need to work together to make sure that we honor the good things, not the bad things. We will now invite the chair of Africa Online Media Corporation, Reverend Pam Fomino, to introduce our speakers and get the conversation started. Our speakers are in-house people, so they don't need any introductions, but Reverend Pam always likes to say a word of welcome to each and every one of us. Welcome to the show today, the 29th day of October, 2023. Over to you, Reverend Pam.
Liaison, thank you so much. Again, I'm still on the road. That's why you guys can't see my face. But I'm gonna give well, before I give the mic to our sister to introduce herself, to those who don't know her and Dr. Santos, I don't think there's any human being on this planet that doesn't know him. But anyway, just in case somebody was just born, you know. So I wanna see, everybody's laughing at me. I want to just take a minute to thank you, Nia Song, Ambassador Lisa, Dr. Crosslin, Dr. Martha Tako, Honorable Dr. Nick Santos, and to also welcome all our viewers around the globe, those who are watching on Facebook, those who are going to watch on YouTube, those who are going to watch 50 years from now, just to thank you. We have been doing this match. It's going to make us 8 years. We have never canceled a show. We have never missed a show. We are always here, and we're all volunteers, you know, so we need more volunteers. So I want to give the mic to my amazing sister, Dr. Tamata Ako, to introduce herself, take a moment, introduce herself to our viewers. And after Dr. Ta, we'll go to Dr. Nicolas, then I'll hand over to Ambassador Lisa. You're all welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk on a very sensitive topic like this, one that is really eroding our society. My name is Dr. Ta Martha Ako. I am an educational psychologist. This is not my first time here. This is not my first time on this platform. And I have been lucky to be with my boss here, Honorable Santos, many times to talk on issues that affect us, affect our psyche, and looking for ways, especially, to help people out of these situations. It is a rare privilege. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Santos.
As Reverend Palm rightly said, there's nobody on planet Earth now that should not know this name. Dr. Nicolas Santo. Yeah. Anyway, I'm a therapist and a clinical psychologist. I run an independent practice as well, known as the Association of Psychological and Psychiatric Services, whereby I attend to people who have problems of this magnitude, or of the subject matter that we're handling today. Unfortunately, I've served as a Child Protective Service Evaluator for the Department of Health and Human Services, Charleston, West Virginia, where I was typically working on abused children and removal and placement into foster homes. So the red flags of domestic violence is what I'm very savvy about. And some of us through experience have gone through situations of that nature. So I'll be bringing a lot of light today from academic perspective, clinical perspective, and from experience. Thank you.
All right, Ambassador Lisa, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Santos, and excuse me, Dr. Martha. So domestic violence is the subject we're talking about today. And some of the numbers that I quoted in my opening or editorial were staggering. So let me start with you, Dr. Santos. Can you tell me how far back has this term or this subject of domestic violence, how far back has it been in existence?
Since the creation of man,
Mm-hmm.
because where two or three are living under the same roof, there must be disagreements of one nature or the other. And if we go into a psychosocial work of Jean Piaget and also Eric Erikson, we talk of the stages of development. In the various stages of development across the spans, there are bound to be behavioral changes which stem from either the environment or from genetics. That's where we talk of nature and nurture. So, for example, you can get married to a good wife or a good husband. You fail to understand that between the ages of 40 to 50, there will be a midlife crisis, which means that struggle for self-identification and trying to re-examine conscience to see whether you have satisfied what you really came out to this world to achieve. Then at that time, other than talking of we, you tend to talk about I. And when you talk about I, your universal order become angry. And then the problem has just started. Then now we start talking about family problems that comes as a result of relationship in marriage, family homeostasis, individuation, where people tend to be individuals rather than working together, and all those things. So a crisis will come in. The crisis come in because there are many causes of such crisis. It can be job loss. It can be financial. It can be argument about the role of siblings into the relationship. And when we talk about domestic violence, we are not only limiting it to marital relationship. We're also extending it to children, family members, the siblings who are living under that roof. We put it domestic to differentiate it from abuse. We put it domestic, what is happening within the roof where you people stay or live. So these problems are, as you asked, I would say from Genesis to Matthew.
Amen. Genesis to Matthew.
If I may cut in there,
It has existed from Genesis to Matthew.
And beyond. Genesis to Matthew and beyond. Dr. Martha, you said that domestic violence has existed since the beginning of time.
Yeah, as you said, from Genesis to Revelation, it is continuous.
Yes.
It is a very destructive social behavior, very, very destructive. And what is strange about it is that it does not affect just one gender. It affects all genders. It cuts across all ages, sexual orientation, religion, race, and you name them. And the causes also, there are things that happen around us every day. It's just like part of growing, interaction with people, and all of a sudden, you get a click somewhere. Something comes in. Is it poverty? Is it stress? Is it alcoholism? Is it abuse, drug abuse? Is it mental illness? Something has to provoke it. And the one thing that there's a definition of domestic violence that I love so much. The definition from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, which defines it as the intentional physical assault, intimidation, battery, sexual assault, or the use of other threatening behaviors by one member of a household against another. Others include stalking, use of threatening looks or gestures typical of our African parents, attempts to control the reproductive health of an intimate partner, humiliation or isolation. Sometimes you don't even know that your action, they must not be verbal. The cues must not be verbal. They are non-verbal cues. They are tend to look at your own child in a very intimidating way. And you don't know how much that affects the child. because you can't see the psychological effects on the child. You think it is just normal for a parent to shout at a child, to batter, to stalk, to intimidate, kick, bite, beat, whatever.
Will I be right? Will I be right if I said that domestic violence results because we want to dominate? One person wants to dominate the other.
Yeah.
Power and control.
It's all
exactly.
about control. I like that. Dr.
I
Mark,
am the man, for example.
you said something here, Yuki, when you were defining domestic violence. You said threatening looks. Now, I remember as a child growing up, there were 12 of us that were all the cousins. We all went to church together. My grandmother could be in the pulpit, in the choir stand, and all she had to do was give us one of those looks, and we straightened up. I don't recall my grandmother ever having to spank us. Our parents did, but my grandmother had never had to put her hands on us. And we spent every single weekend until most of us were grown in our 20s. We were still going to our grandparents' house for the weekend, even with our children. We packed our own kids up and we all went to my grandmother's house. But you said threatening looks is a part of domestic violence, even though there's no physical, no emotional, there's no striking, no hitting with their hands. My grandmother told us that our hands were for loving. And if we ever had to discipline our children, we never, ever should slap them in their face, even though I had to give my boys a couple of backhand licks a couple of times. But threatening looks, talk about that, because threatening looks kept us in line. All she'd do was cut our eyes over at us from the quiet stand, and we knew to straighten up and fly right. But we never suffered anything else from that. So how is threatening looks considered domestic violence?
Okay, we want to look at the effects of this. When you look at a child like that, the child develops fear.
Okay.
You make the child not too proactive. If a child wants to, maybe a child who loves talking or playing, and at every instance you are there to bully with your looks, threaten just by looking at the child. You make the child to have a low self-esteem. The child does not feel comfortable expressing himself or herself. These are things that are happening every day in Africa, and the parents don't even know that these things affect their children. And they are long
every day in Africa, because when I look at my family, I'm looking at my family dynamics and my cousins, all my first cousins, all our children. There at least some of us have 3 generations. We did not suffer from low self-esteem. We don't suffer from any of those side effects that you are talking about. We're all either married, we all have our own homes, our children are well, we've never had to deal with any police coming to our house, we don't have drugs and alcohol. But you're saying in Africa, a threatening look leads to fear, and it stifles a child from being free to express. Is that because behind the threatening look comes other consequences?
Of course.
Okay.
If you grew up in Africa, you understand that our parents had too many non-verbal ways of communicating. If my mother doesn't want you to do something, she has a way she looks at you. If there's a behavior she doesn't appreciate, she doesn't need to talk. The way she looks at you, adjust yourself. She doesn't want you to go somewhere or do something. The way she looks at, she doesn't need to talk for you to behave. When you are too used to them, you understand.
Interesting. I've never thought about that. I just thought that was very key when you said that threatening looks do lead to fear. We did have a fear. We had a healthy fear. We had the same kind of fear of God that we had for our grandmother. But like I said, it never led to any physical discipline. And I think we all grew up pretty self-adjusted, self-sufficient, because we knew that they were loved. It was love. And like I said, there were 12 of us. So When you're one person trying to take care of 12 people and do what you need to do, all you needed was a look. And you know, that was typical of old school grandparents. Now, these grandparents and parents now, they're too young. And I don't believe they once suffered from low self-esteem. Nia, son, you have a question? You want to
I
jump
just wanted to ask Dr. Santo, at what point does this bullying, or whatever we want to call it, domestic violence, we'll call it that way, become unbearable, become intolerable? When does it become something antisocial that we should not let happen in the society?
Thank you. You took words out of my mouth, because I was about to interject something, like trying to point out some of the red flags or things that you can figure out in a relationship with any other person. It doesn't necessarily mean your marital relationship, even with your friends or relatives that you're living in the same abode or the same house, same accommodation. If, for example, I was pointing some instances where you can pick some of them and then talk it out, address it. If it continues, then it becomes a concern. And it becomes a concern, a clinical concern, if it affects your major areas of functioning. For example, if you find yourself at any time not being able to accomplish your activities of daily living, being disturbed, loss of appetite, stressed, depressed because of a behavior, a persistent behavior or persistent arrogance or abuse from a universal order, then you warrant clinical attention. For example, these are some of the things that I'm going to point out. If you listen to someone who embarrasses or make fun of you in front of your friends or family, for example, you are black, you are fat, you are ugly, you are not handsome, in front of people, that should be addressed. If it's not addressed and it persists for a long time, it may make you stress out, and it may be likened to bullying or another form of stress trigger. And then someone deliberately put down your achievements. For example, it happened to me. Put down your achievements. What's that? I had a friend who was graduating as a doctor. I basically helped him when he was doing his defense, because he came to take advice from me. Then I received an invitation for his graduation ceremony. I saw my name was addressed as Mr. Santo, Nicolas. So I sent back this invitation for him to correct it. And if I told him that if I didn't love him, I wouldn't say, or I didn't like him, I wouldn't say he should correct. I would typically just ignore, because I saw other colleagues listed. I was not listed as such. Okay. So somebody deliberately puts down your achievement, or somebody make you feel like you are unable to make decisions. For example, a spouse treating another as such. Use intimidation or threats to gain compliance all the time. Want to use intimidation or threat for you to comply with doing something for him or her, or tells you that you are nothing without him or her. Because some spouses will tell others that you are nothing without me. You know what that means? Or treat you roughly, like grabbing you, pushing you, pinching, shove you, or hit you. That's serious, right? Call you several times a night, or show up to make sure you are where you said you will be. Controlling, showing up at their job site 10 times a day to verify, to see whether you are actually there, or making phone calls to your job site at random. Those are signs. Those are the signs right there. Use drugs or alcohol as an excuse for saying hurtful things or abusing you. You can't tell me every day that, although they said what Shakespeare used to say, that it is what is in the head when there's no liquor that comes out when there is liquor. So you can't take that as a pretext to insult me all the time and get up in the morning and tell me, sorry, honey, I was drunk last night.
Right.
If you keep on doing that, it's no more accidental, it's intentional. That's abuse right there. And then it blames you for how they feel or act, like always blaming you for my things, that you are the one causing my not producing, where my output is hindered by you. Or then pressure you. This is a very important one. Pressure you sexually for things you aren't ready for. For example, no matter that you are married, you can't just go in there and come out anytime you want. You need permission still. Nia, so you got that one? You still need permission. So
I get you. Yes.
yeah. So when you pressure your partner for that, when he's not ready, that's abuse. Make you feel there is no way out of the relationship. If we are not married, we are not continuously married, or we are not together, you have just no way. Life is over for you. So somebody painting such a mentality to you all the time, or singing it to you all the time, got it all wrong, because that is abuse. Make you feel like there
Dr.
is no way out
Santos.
of the relationship.
Yeah, Dr. Santos, it may all look like just social behavior. We're just being community. We're just being friendly. But when does it become abuse?
It becomes abuse when it really disturbs you. It really upsets you. And when it affects, it will interfere with your activities and your personal well-being, your behavior. Like, for example, you are sad, you get depressed and stressed out because of that behavior that is continuing, and you have talked it out. You have talked it out, and you have noticed that it's not a mistake because it keeps on going on and on and on. Then you need to seek therapy, or bringing your universal order into therapy so that you people can fix things together. Yeah.
Ambassador Lisa?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a speech that I'm getting ready to do for the UN next month, and I was already shifting. We so often talk about the problem, and no one is ever talking about the solution. And my speech was going to be solution oriented, and some of the things that I'm hearing here sounds like could be nipped in the bud with some good affirmation and some good self-esteem. Am I correct? Starting when you're a child. Because I'm telling my speech is already written, and that's where I went. But like I said, so often we're pulling up statistics to make us sound intelligent. Okay, so you know how to Google, you know how to do some research. But what are we going to do about this? And you both are bringing out some very good points that I had not thought about. So some of the things that you're sharing, I'm like, I didn't have those issues. We didn't have those problems because our parents, my mother, her sisters, our fathers and uncles, our grandparents, they always affirmed us. They were always pouring into us, even though they were all very strict disciplinarians, but we had the freedom to be creative. And this is what I'm not finding when I'm in Africa. I'm not finding that the children have opportunities for creativity, not having the opportunities to even explore their dreams, goals. They're not even being encouraged to dream. They're not even, being encouraged. I watch children as they're studying for those exams. Those things drive me crazy. You go to the card store, and the card store is full of cards on congratulations on, your exam, and we're passing. I mean, where are the birthday cards? So I found that the kids are not even studying anything that they want to. I just recently found out that the government dictates, maybe not in all countries, but in the countries that I go to, the government dictates what your child studies in school. So the problem sounds like it starts, the foundation of it, outside of it being since the beginning of time, is that there is no self-esteem building. There's no encouragement for creativity, for even exploring creativity. So I'm always in favor of starting with the kids. We may not be able to do a lot about the adults, but if we start with the kids, then we can change these next 2 generations that are coming, and we can make those numbers change. Yes, Dr. Santos.
Niason asked the question. I asked the question: when does it really? When is it really considered abuse? I will still throw more light on that. Under the Department of Health and Human Resources, there is a particular department. There's a particular unit that works with child abuse, and there's another unit that works with adult abuse. And we are being trained to go into houses to carry out family assessment of that family unit when we have report, because mandated reporters like nurses, social workers, teachers at schools may find red flags of something going on in that home that is not okay. For example, a kid may be coming to school every day without shower. A kid may be coming to school every day with hunger. So we go into that home to check, to carry out a family assessment to see if everything is all right. When you appear there, some of the things you will discover, like if it's a dysfunctional family where there is abuse, you will find out that when you start looking into the child's vaccination booklet, the child's medical records, when was this child last in hospital? Maybe a child has not gone to hospital for 10 or 5 years. That is a problem right there. You look into the food. You go into the refrigerator to check the food, to see if they have food and other things. But we have to be careful, because you must always draw a fine line between socioeconomic hardship and abuse.
I was going to react.
Because some are just hard. So some are just having shortages in income and lost jobs. They have lost their jobs. They cannot afford food and other things. That's why we always say, then we can then approve basic support items like food stamps, SNAP benefits, and other things. Provide transportation for hospital. Provide a doctor, PCP, and other things. We can work on that. But in some cases, we find drug use also being one of the causes of abuse. Drug use. The newborn mother may also be under drugs, under the influence of drugs, that is unable even to take care of a newly born baby. And some of them voluntarily want to offer their baby to the department. They freely want to give their baby to someone. So they want us to help them to find help for their child, because they know that of their fate, and so we have to also send them into treatment, into drug treatment, Right. So the issue is, we have to always draw that fine line between abuse and socioeconomic hardship. And then we come also, we look at the adults who are there. There are some adults, like, for example, some sick bed-ridden adults who do not have caregivers from the outside and family members to provide the caregiving. Some of them are being abused in homes. So I'm just giving you another picture of when really certain things are considered abuse near some.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Let us turn to Debbie McCormick. Can you unmute, please? We need you to say something while we continue with the discussion. Dr. Grosslin, also, please, if you are ready, please, can you unmute so that we ask a first question about domestic violence? What do you know about it? What have you to say about it?
And we know that Sister Debbie is in Liberia, so she may be having some
connectivity problems. So for now, Dr. Grosslin, please.
Yes, thanks. So I'm in Mississippi. So I like everything that I heard. So just like really quick, what Ambassador Lisa said, and the therapist is right on. You guys are right on the mark. The bottom line is we do want to replace the abuse with the examples of having a healthy home. So when the abused people can begin to shift their thought processes on the abuse and focus on what a healthy home should look like, then they'll be able to measure it and understand what their situation looks like compared to what a healthy home is supposed to look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gloria. Let me ask, while we're still waiting on Deborah, Dr. Santos, Dr. Martha, do either of you practice in Africa?
Well, I'm a psychologist, so I am a teacher. I'm a lecturer. And but I have got a lot of experience in Africa teaching, especially in schools in my country. And this issue it's an issue that I always say, if it does not infect you, it will affect you. It's something that we grow up with, and we don't pay attention to. It is just normal for your parents to abuse you. It is you don't report. You can't report. It's an abomination. It's normal for them to be violent to you, to batter, to kick, slap, and things like that.
You said it was an abomination to report.
Yes.
That behavior's got that was that's got to change. That's got to change. Dr. Santos, what about you? Oh my
Ambassador
God.
Lisa, I run a non-governmental organization, Association of Psychological and Psychiatric Services, which is officially registered in Cameroon, in Douala, Littoral. And because of the fact that I have not been on the ground, I am doing audiovisual consulting.
Okay.
And secondly, I did my doctorate research at the Arrow Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Abeokuta in Nigeria, but that was on schizophrenia, acute mental illness. I grew up also in Africa. So I grew up in Africa up to the age of 23 when I left the country. So I am used to all what Dr. Mata is saying, because some of us even what we consider in the Western world as abuse, if they were to victimize or report our parents or our grandparents, I believe me, all of them would have been in jail. Even in school, where they use physical punishment.
Yes.
We are talking of domestic. We are not yet talking about school abuse. That one is hell, because all the teachers need to keep a very long stick to whip the student. They will call you outside. Two people will hold your hands, two will hold your legs, and they will be whipping you in a general assembly, flocking you on the buttocks, 54 strokes. I mean, these are things. This is the system in which we grew up. A system whereby in the morning you have to rush and fill a very big drum with water on your head before you can go to school. So sometimes I say some practices in some areas. That's why we are always warned as psychologists and social workers or people, professionals of the humanitarian profession. We are being warned not to diagnose practices of some areas as a diagnosis, because I will, as a multicultural therapist, has to be very versed with aspects of Chinese culture, aspects of African culture, aspects of American culture. That's where we talk of being multicultural, in the sense that we know if I'm inviting you to a party, Ambassador Lisa, for my graduation, you should know that you should come 2 hours late, because you will be respecting the African time. So, but if I'm coming to your own, I have to know I'm following Western time. So I will not consider you as late. I will consider you that you have understood my culture. That is not a diagnosis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Santos.
All being said and done, Dr. Santos and Dr. Ako, I just want to input that whatever our cultures were bringing us up, we grew up better beings than we should have been if we had been let loose. So I appreciate some of the cultures, some of the aspects of our culture that were ingrained in us when we were growing up. Reverend, sorry, I'm just trying to let Ambassador Lisa know that certain aspects of our cultures were bad, but were very good because they made us better beings.
Yeah, I understand that. And also, you were asking, I think, Nia Sung, you were saying what makes the behaviors all of a sudden abuse. I'm not sure who said when you start feeling bad about it. There was something I was getting. I'm trying to see. I made a note here. somewhere. But anyway, one thing about, and we're not talking about child, but we're just talking about domestic violence, and children are being violated in their homes. So that would be considered domestic violence. But we cannot be angry when we're doing these behaviors. When you become angry about it, that's when I think you have crossed the line. Am I correct, Dr.
Yeah.
Santo? That's when you've crossed. When you're angry, I learned not to discipline my children in anger. If I'm upset about something, I tell them to go sit down somewhere. Then we come back later after I've calmed down, because I really want them to get the point of what I'm saying. I don't just want to just go off and start beating people and, you know, whipping them unjustly. And I'm sorry, I'm having nosebleed. Excuse me. Leah, so
Yes, okay, go ahead. Yes. So unfortunately, she's moved away, but we know that domestic violence on the continent is something different than we know it out here. Out here, of course, you have the police to intervene. But back in the continent, my parents could come to school and get me beaten up because I did not do the right thing. I never had that happen to me anyway, but I saw parents who came to school to whip their children because because they misbehaved. So parents are
Yes, so it's very important.
Yes.
It's very important to also highlight the fact that it's not only from IPV, intimate partner violence. There's also relatives who come to the house to abuse.
That's right.
Abuse their in-laws.
Yes.
People should be made to understand that.
Which is bad. Yeah, which is bad.
Yeah, they should be made to understand that when you come and attack your brother's wife or attack your brother, your sister's husband, that is abuse.
You are going beyond the line. Yeah, you are going beyond the line. Right.
And we also ignore the bystander effect.
Yes. I see Debbie is visible now. Debbie, can you hear us? If you can, please unmute yourself and tell us what you think about domestic violence.
Hello, everyone. Greetings to you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we've had some series of issues here with power because we had fire yesterday.
No.
In relation to...
Are you still in Liberia?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ni. In relation to domestic violence, I will say it's not just spouse to spouse, but it's the entire family and community. Not just in Africa, but in developing countries. Because I've lived in South America and Asia, and what I experienced growing up as a child also prevails in the other regions. It's just a magnitude and who is doing it. Personally, growing up, I was abused by my uncle, my mother's younger brother, by punishing us, and he called it, in the dialect,
discipline?
It was
discipline?
No, in the dialect he said, the fire of death. Okay. And he actually used poison ivy to rub on my sister's shins and eye.
What?
And locked us up. Anyway, it's a longer story, but to make it short, he is in his 90s now, and his children were blaming me that I didn't pay their school fees. I did not educate them, and their father educated me. So we had a family meeting. I said, ask your father where he educated us, or me, for example, the only one. And he said, oh, I didn't educate you. I bought a reader for you when you were in primary 3. You didn't use it because you spent the school year in 3 grades. And that's why I beat you up, because I didn't know why they kept promoting you from one grade to the other, which is true. I did not spend 1 year in one class. I spent 1 year, 3 semesters in 3 classes. They kept promoting every year. Every semester they would promote me to the other one. And he kept beating me. I didn't have an board, but when I go home, I'll recite the homework based on what I saw on the board, because they refused to buy an armboard for me. So I would get beaten because I was reciting the homework.
Homework overhead.
From my brain, I just visually saw the homework and I had the answers. And when I go to school the next day, I will tell them what the answers were because they refused to buy an armboard and a chalk for me. And my mother didn't have it. So to make a long story short, I was beaten. I have scars all over my body that I got from people who were not my immediate parents. My father has never touched me with a cane. My mother had never trashed me, but aunts, uncles, and the entire village used to beat me up.
Would you say you're better off today than you were if you were not?
I was scared to be beaten, so I had to do what I had to do to stop being beaten. So I decided that cramming that I was doing to get the homework was going to be 10 times more. To this day, if I see something, I don't have to write it down. I can just tell you what I saw and visually what I saw, and I will recount everything to you. But all those people who used to beat me up, when they see me now, they all come to me and apologize.
Amen.
So what I say nowadays is, I have never lifted a hand to beat any of my nieces, nephews, or my children. And all I tell all of them is, please, just beware of the relationships you get yourselves into. If you feel that someone talks to you psychologically, emotionally, and otherwise abusive, let me know. And actually, before, the reason why I muted myself earlier is because I got a call from my younger daughter, and she was having a debate with friends about the issue between Palestine and Israel. And
Delicate issue.
That's a political issue and not, but she said she was verbally and whatever domestically abused because her roommates were threatening her. She's sharing a house with two roommates, a boy and a girl. So the two girls and one boy sharing the house. So it exists. Domestic violence does not exist only between relatives, not just from people within the same community, but those who may be living from different backgrounds, but in the same household with different backgrounds. So that's the point I wanted to make in that regard. So thank you. Back to you.
Let me weigh in. You know, Debbie, if you had an armboard, which I've not heard that word since I came to this country. You know, thank you for reminding me. When I first heard you say it, I had to try to figure out what that was. Then I remember that there was something like that, you know, for primary school.
Late.
Yeah, it's late because they didn't give it to you. They prepare your brain. Your brain activated itself to capture and snap the homework because you went into a survival mode, which made you even a better person. And those people were beating you out of ignorance. May God forgive them. But all those things are like Romans 8:28, all things work together for our good because love, all of them contributed to who you are today. And excuse me, I'm sure you know what to tell your daughter because nobody should be subjected to that. I actually had somebody on another forum, we're on a board meeting, who got offended. First of all, I didn't know his background or where he came from. But when I mentioned that this thing happening, not that I condone anything, I personally don't take any sides, but they are all descendants of Abraham. So they are siblings, you know, and that he got offended with that. I said, but that is what the Bible says. And this is not something that I came up with. So that is a delicate topic to touch. So we will not go into it because people can hurt people because of their viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I always tell people there's three sides to everything. Ambassador Lisa, I was going to call you. Are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay now. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
To the back. But I want to ask Dr. We are almost at the top of the hour. Dr. Santos, to weigh in on some of the, like Nia some put it, malady associated with domestic violence or some of the psychological problems, it could send people mental. I know those of you from Cameroon, when I was in high school, there was a lady who used to tie her hair with a scarf in Bamenda. I went to high school. I was in Bambali for 3 weeks. I got sick. Then I went to CPC. My dad moved me to a Christian high school, but they used to call her Mary. She used to tie her hair, you know her, and she would hold a bike, Okay, so Debbie, we're in.
Is that the Mary who was Miss Mary who was using the bicycle?
Yes, I don't want to call the last name because I know some of
It's
the person's children. That's why I only use Mary, but the name of the guy was a famous politician. So in Cameroon, I don't want to call his name, but that is somebody that went mental, or to even now as an adult, thinking back then, it went mental. And domestic violence is not just physical. As a matter of fact, the emotional one is worse than physical. So, Dr. Santos, I want you to weigh in as a clinical psychologist some of the effects, health or mental effects of this domestic violence.
Yeah, abuse as a whole, be it domestic or any form, comes with a lot of can be emotionally disturbing or troubling to individuals, and also another form of abuse can be psychological. Emotional means that you are undermining a person's self-worth through constant criticism, belittling one's abilities, name calling, or other verbal use, damaging a partner's relationship with the children, or letting a partner see friends and family, not seeing friends and family, all those kind of things. Basically, there is what we call self-esteem. Well, self-esteem is at once your self-esteem is attacked, you suffer anxiety and stress-related issues. So you basically develop a generalized anxiety, which is worriness, because when you think about what is going on, you persistently are troubled and worried about it, and you're waiting to see or looking forward to see that day when this issue can come to an end. Your stress level goes up, and once you're depressed, it's very difficult for you to meet up with your daily routines. You may be running late for school, running late for work. You may get up, you may be having sleepless nights. Some may develop panic attack, from this. Some are suicidal. People commit suicide because of this. Relationships. In most relationships, we've seen men stand a high probability of committing suicide. Women stand a high probability of walking away from the relationship and continuing somewhere else. Women are more victims of domestic violence than men, but domestic violence is also underreported. Yeah, because of the men always believe that they are stronger if they go and say that, oh, my wife beats me, my wife does this, they will mock at him, Whereas for women, they are easygoing to discuss their issues that is not going on well. Women are more intelligent and more vocal. Men are not. And men keep it within them. You only hear about how they've ended it all, or they end up in mental homes or other things, or homeless shelters and stuff. So we always see that most of the victims who are suffering from depression, generalized anxiety, suicidal victims, in the center of it also is axis 4. Axis 4. Axis 1 of mental health, multi-axial diagnosis of mental illness, American Psychiatry Association Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. Axis 1 is anxiety and mood disorders. Axis 2 is personality disorder. So personality disorder is withdrawal. Most of them develop anti-social personality. They withdraw because if nobody listens to me, I'm going through this. Nobody seems to understand where I'm coming from. I seem to talk about it, but nobody's giving it attention. Or maybe I should just let them go and stay on my own. They invite you to a party, you don't go to the party, you stay home. So you resort to alcoholism and other things, only coming from this abuse. What about bullying in schools of children who have ended their lives as a result of bullying? Because of stress levels and anxiety or worries. And they develop antisocial personalities. So that's axis 2. Axis 3 is medical condition, and axis 4 now have it as psychosocial, environmental, vocational, legal problems. Now, interpersonal relationship deficits. That's axis 4. So most of these people, because of the problems, they are suffering problem with interpersonal relationship, maybe by spouse, marital matters. There may be a child in that house who is undergoing sexual abuse from a sibling, or from an extended relative, especially now that marriages are considered blended marriages. We should be careful how we blend these marriages, because it may be the child you are bringing from the other side coming to meet their own child, then they start having intercourse. We have to open our eyes, because we've been talking, we have not talked about sexual abuse. That's the white elephant in the room.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Dr. Santos. And you are right on point and on cue, because we are at the top of the hour and we are going to get ready for our anthem. And while we are doing that, we will be back with our announcements after that, and we will continue the conversation. But we want you to take a minute to go grab a drink of water if you need it, paddle your nose. I need to go check mine while we are listening to our anthem, and we will be right back. Let's see.
The anthem.
Ambassador Lisa, are you pulling it? Ambassador Lisa, are you pulling the anthem? Okay.
Oh, oh no. Africans for Africa. Africans for Africa. Africans, Africa. Africans for Africa. Africans for Africa. Africans for Africa. Africans have many bright ideas. If only you let us share. If you really want to know my history, please come, sit down, listen to my story. God gave us a wisdom. He guides our footsteps, makes us shine and transform. Hey, I want people with so many cultures, yet indeed we are one. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. Let us all unite behind Africa Online Media Corporation. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. It's time to come together, promote awareness, progress, and solution. Hey, Africans for Africa. Africans for Africa. Africans for Africa. All Africans can rally for a common cause, to believe without judgment in what our brother does, to identify and resolve our challenges, to allow each other's ideas with regard to standards as one people with so many cultures. Yes, indeed, we are one. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. Let us solve all the problems plaguing our continent. Stand up, Africa. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. Africa Online Media Corporation, that's a good way to start. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. They have all the resources we need to benefit our society. Oh. There will be education for everyone if we believe. Prosperity for Africans if we believe. Medical facilitation for Africans if we believe. Stand up, Africa, yes, for Africa. Africa Online Media Corporation, that's a good way to start. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. Africa is the cradle of civilization, the motherland. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. We were enslaved not because we were weak, but because of our hospitality. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. Jump on the Africa Online Miracle Jet. Don't be left behind. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. Together we shall succeed. Together we will win. Stand up, Africans, let's save Africa. We are writing our own story, the truth, and we shall tell it to the world. Stand up, Africans, for Africa. No more lies. Africans own Africa.
We are welcome back, and it's time to go to announcements. Ambassador Lisa, you want to start, or
that's me. That's me.
Yes. Okay.
So next week we are going to be talking about exorbitant funerals and death celebration. You know how our people, they do funerals. A lot of times, even when people die, they keep their bodies in the morgue for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they come and do all these huge celebrations. And some of the times when those people were alive, they did not give them their roses. You know, when they are dead, then people show up and start spending money on people that never contributed to their growth. They're growing up. So we're going to be talking about that next week. And I think it's a good timing because a lot of those things happen toward the end of like December. People go home and they do all this big. We're not criticizing. Spend all your millions, but the person is already dead and gone. So you are not spending on that person. You are spending on people that don't really count that much. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. I see Dr. Santos nodding his head. So hopefully you'll be on the call.
It's a good topic.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador Lisa.
Thank you. Africa Online has an ongoing fundraiser. It's called Operation Borehole 55. It is our desire to see a borehole in every country on the continent of Africa where there is a medical facility that has no running water. We're talking about a government-approved medical facility that has no running water for its clients and its patients. But we can do something about that. You can help us bring change for our sons and daughters on the continent. If you would consider making a donation, no matter how large or small, to AfricaOnlineTV.org. That's AfricaOnlineTV.org, and make a donation. Think about us every week. Maybe every time you brush your teeth and you've got that water running as you're brushing, and you brush 5 minutes and that water is just running. Take that time and make a donation to Africa Online so that we can put water in the continent, on the continent. Our first borehole is up and running in Sierra Leone, and it is benefiting 6,000 households. We can do the same in every country. Our next country is Kenya. and Cameroon. Make a donation. Think about it. It's Thanksgiving time. Maybe you might want to just make a Thanksgiving offering. Help us help our children, because Africa belongs to Africans. Thank you, Nia-san.
Thank you very much. Nous vous prions, nous insistons. Nous venons vers vous. Nous vous prions de nous aider à construire les points d'eau, les éductions d'eau portables en Afrique. On a commencé au Sierra Leone il y a de cela 3 ans, je crois. Et maintenant, on vise le Cameroun et le Kenya. S'il vous plaît, bien vouloir nous donner un peu de sous pour qu'on puisse continuer à construire ce qu'on appelle des adductions d'eau potable dans nos divers pays africains. Ça s'appelle l'eau, c'est la vie. Ça, c'est le thème de notre fonds, de notre comment dire, je suis en train de me perdre. En tout cas, donnons-nous un peu de sous pour qu'on puisse continuer à construire des adductions d'eau potable en Afrique. On vise les 55 pays d'Afrique. Donc, on a commencé au Sierra Leone. Maintenant, on vise le Cameroun et le Kenya. Donnons-nous un peu de sous. Merci beaucoup. L'eau, c'est la vie. C'est notre thème. Et merci, merci, merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Nia-san. Back to the conversation, Dr. Santos, Dr. Martha. We're talking about domestic violence and how it's more prevalent on the continent than it's here in the United States. As I said in my opening, we have laws, we have protection, we have police protection against such things. However, that's not the same on the continent. Let me ask you both, what do you know about the Multiput Protocol? Dr. Santos.
The multiple protocol. I don't have an idea about that, frankly.
Oh, okay. Well, Dr. Martha, how about you? Excuse me?
Maybe you should put it in other words for him to understand.
I did not get her.
I said that maybe you put it in other words for us to understand.
Oh, no, that's what it's called. It's a protocol for the African Charter of Human and People's Rights and the Rights of Women in Africa. And it's called the Multiput Protocol. It's an international human rights instrument established by the African Union that went into effect in 2005. And it guarantees comprehensive rights for women who are being abused by their intimate partners, that they can now call the police and get help. It protects their reproductive health rights as well. I believe Liberia is the first and only country that has what we consider an all-in-one place to go. They can go there and report the crimes to the police. They have doctors, they have lawyers, they have a place for them to stay. So instead of the police sending them now to a doctor, and then a doctor sending them now here, there, and everywhere, it's all comprehensive health care in one place. They can report the crime, get treatment, have a place to stay of safety.
Okay, understand now. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't talk about that at this moment, since
well, you see, that's the great thing about this program, because we learn, everybody learns something.
Yeah,
And I apologize, Ambassador Lisa, I am on 2 Zooms, so that's why you had something. Even though I lowered the volume, I apologize if the noise came through.
Oh, no problem. I'm sharing.
I'm going to mute to the last word.
I'm sorry?
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm putting
it's nice. It's nice we're learning about that today. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Africa is waking up. You know, Africa is growing up.
Yes,
we're having now also some apparatuses of mandatory reporting.
Yes, that's and that's very good. And what we're still finding is that a lot of women in a lot of countries still don't know. So we have to make it our business to know it, understand it, and then begin to share it. This was enacted in 1986. It was not adopted until 1991, and there are still countries on the continent who have not adopted the program because simply the women just don't know. I happened to have a conversation with a sister After a very famous singer in Nigeria was murdered by her husband, that's when Africa began to wake up to this domestic violence. Pastors have stopped telling their congregants, just go home and pray. Oh, just put up and deal with it, because now, because of her death, the women are now rising up and saying, we're not going back home. We're not dealing with this. However, the problem is they have no place to go. If they leave their home, where are they going to go? Because they don't have shelters. So as I'm talking to women, I'm talking to pastors. I was talking to pastors right after it happened, and they were like, yeah, we can't tell our women to go back home anymore. We can't send those children back home anymore. So now they're starting to wake up and come into what can we begin to do about this now. So as we're at our last 15 minutes, or we're basically our last 10 minutes, I want to talk about some of the solutions. As I said earlier, domestic violence is a very big behemoth to tackle. But what are some solutions, some small things that we can do that will help mitigate, that will help lessen, help bring these numbers down? Dr. Martha, let's start with you.
Normally there are things that we could do. We have to, first of all, support our family members who are going through domestic violence. We have to encourage people to talk about it. We've also discovered that men don't talk about domestic violence. They bottle a lot. And at one point, the bottle explodes. That's why you hear of suicide and stuff like that. People should also be aware of support lines. They can call for information. And also try not to be judgmental or to stigmatize people who are going through domestic violence. It is very important to get counseling services in every country, and also to make these services available to everyone, and not put a price or price on it as we often do back home. Group therapies can help. Treatment. There's also people can be treated if you have people who are supportive. For example, if you meet a mental health professional or you have a good social network, this social network can help support you to recovery. Health education is also very important, and also try to prevent this from happening. Try to prevent it. And women should learn to draw the line. Don't stay there until the end.
I agree.
Because when domestic violence begins, it only increases, especially when you don't talk about it. Yeah. So we need to support one another, the family members, friends, and other support groups available. People should know where to go to, who to consult, and be free to talk about it. Don't be ashamed. We should stop stigmatizing people who complain or think that they are very weak, especially men.
Safe places.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amen. We need to make safe places. Thank you. I had a domestic violence situation in my marriage. It happened once. I'm happy to say my husband is still alive, and it only happened once. And I didn't have to call the police. Dr. Santos, what about you? What are some solutions?
The solutions are very at our fingertips. The first thing is awareness. Today, we are fortunate in the country we live, the great country we live called United States of America, like some developed countries, where all institutions have social workers, counselors, psychologists, primary care providers who go into the school, dentists who are all healthcare providers. And one of the laws in the states is that we are mandated reporters. When we see the red flags, we will identify them. Believe me, your daughter, your son is not going back home. The matter must be resolved before your son or daughter goes back home. Or an adult who is helpless is not going back home. In the hospitals, we have questionnaires that they go around to ask you, how's your appetite? Are you suicidal? That person will ask you that question. They are lead questions. They are questions that lead to something. Either if there's a yes or no, it means we have to dig deep on that yes. Why is this box checked red? Yes. Who is doing this to you? You know? And once we find out all those things now, we must send a social worker or a child protective service into those homes. Today, majority of the cases that exist are predominantly marital. Yeah, in the United States, it's known for one of the highest counties of divorce in the world. With divorce again, more higher in second marriages even than first ones. Those are the statistics I read across, that in the second marriages have more divorces than even the first ones. Then you see, and it's always one party pointing finger to the other of abuse. Some are playing victims. Some are playing victims, whereas they are the ones abusing their universal order. Some in the country whereby, because of immigrant benefits, the first marriages that cross the continent are the marriages that become shattered because the love was maybe not reciprocal from the onset. It was materialistically motivated. So in a land of free, where everybody have a voice, people are trying to break free. Midlife crisis. Midlife crisis also another factor, where people now want to talk about me, what I have achieved, not what we have achieved. Now comes new protocols, like they call it prenup. You have to declare your assets before you get married so that the other party does not have anything to do with your asset. My children of the first marriage becomes my children, not our children. You know, financial, no longer joint accounts. Accounts will be separated, but we are living in the same roof. Who pays what and who does not pay what becomes another crisis that leads to a dysfunctionality within family structure. And if it all boils down to, if you want to interview each and every party, you will say, no, he is abusing me, she is abusing me. That's where we find ourselves. But the bottom line is, there is help. There is help. My psychotherapist who trained me, they call her Madame Mary von Rose, Multicultural Counseling and Consulting Clinic in Bellsville, told me that the things we fail to address in premarital counseling are the things we come in for therapy for. It's like when you're doing premarital counseling, you will know how to escape those things that comes to haunt the marriage for which you are sick now about, because you didn't do it.
Agreed.
So now we have complaints coming from people who are coming in, they're already at the brink of divorce. The baggage is so low, so heavy. Each one is coming with heavy baggages that we don't know where to start with therapy, whether therapy will even help. And it's unethical to advise couples that you may now divorce. You don't. You let them make their decision.
I'm sorry, you said it's unethical to encourage divorce?
Yes, it's unethical to tell clients in therapy that I think that it is time for you people to divorce. A therapist should never do that. A therapist should either do a referral when he discovers that the therapy sessions are not making progress, rather than giving them ideas that will lead them take that action. Let them make that decision for themselves.
Okay.
So, yes. So now there's help. There's help everywhere. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can just type it in your Google, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You enter the state, city. If you are in a shelter, you enter the shelter. You explain what is the problem. There's a phone number to call. I will share the link. I've already shared the link, but I will still share the phone numbers. You can contact your own therapist or complain to any authority wherever you are. If you are in a school, in a hospital, or in a workplace, there's always help around. People don't just know that in their workplaces they have special units that always handle these issues. People should be aware. But try to seek means by which you could resolve your problems first within the family unit before you take it to third parties. And if you are taking it to third parties, you have to trust the third party you're taking it to.
Right.
Some people today are victims of going to meet false prophets and false pastors, fake pastors, to give their issues to. I don't say good ones do not exist. They are, as well as therapists. Also, some therapists are not helpful. You have to also do your reviews and know how this person is, because the coming in of a third party in a relationship also is a source of danger. How trusted that third party is, who will listen to that abuse, because some people will listen to you complaining about abuse and will exacerbate your abuse by abusing you the more. So, because that individual going through that abuse we consider them vulnerables. They're vulnerable. So, before you explain something to me, I know the consequences and I know what degree of pain you are in. So I will look at ways of which to de-escalate the pain. Usually they are depressed victims, or some are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. If the issue happened in the past, we can walk through in sessions to identify the problem. We can move it to couples counseling, bringing in your partner, and therapy. Therapy, when it comes to family members, the patient, the identified patient is not the individual, but the identified patient is the entire family.
Mm-hmm.
That is big language here.
Yes.
So when you're treating as a therapist, when I'm attending to a family, it is that family that is my patient. It is not the husband, the wife, the spouse, or the child. The entire family unit is my patient.
Yes, I agree.
So one part becomes dysfunctional, the entire system is dysfunctional. And you have to, confidentiality and privacy in this type of a system where you're doing with a group is not guaranteed. Because what I may say to A may take it out of the setting. So, in a nutshell, there is always help. So that's all I can say. There's help. And no domestic violence, abuse, nobody is bigger than it. It happens to anyone, anytime. But the issue, you have to evaluate how huge it is. Have you seek other means of redressing within the family and within the bigger family? If not, before you take it to help for help externally, and you have to be careful to whom you take it to. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nia-san?
Yes, at this time, Ambassador Lisa, I think we're going to take a round of the table, and we're going to start from all the way in Africa, because I believe Debbie is still alive and awake, and she's still anxious to say something. So what I will request her to do, like for everybody else, please be ready to say your last word as we wrap up the program for today. So Debbie, please, your last word on domestic violence.
Thank you very much, Uncle Nee. All I can say is we should stay on top of our families, friends, and loved ones, educate them on the right words to handle one another in any relationship, be it at home, at work, or otherwise. But in this case, we're talking about domestic, which means home, with your partner. And our children, be it girls or boys, are constantly victims to that. So let us not be naive. It does not only happen in North America, it happens in the global South and wherever we are. So we should make sure we educate our immediate loved ones on domestic violence and how they should handle it and where they should go for help, depending on the geographic location of where they are. Thank you very much, Nia. Back to you.
Thank you, Debbie, and enjoy your stay in the Liberian capital and the country as a whole. And we'll hope to see you one day soon. Thank you very much. Dr. Groslin, I don't know. Can you unmute and then give us your last word if you are still with us? Dr. Groslin, please unmute and give us your last word.
Yeah, she's still with us.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just waiting for her to see if she can give us her last word.
Okay,
If
let's proceed. We'll come back to her. Dr. Crossley, whenever you unmute, we'll get back with you.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Dr. Ta Ako Martha, please, your last word on this discussion.
Thank you, Nielsen. It is very important for families to be aware of the bystander effects of domestic violence. It doesn't only end with you. Who are you? A role model to your children. And this is you teaching them domestic violence, training your son to become an aggressive husband in future, training your children to be sad in school, training your daughters to fight their husbands in future. What about the nanny who is at home? Do you bother about the effects on this child? You have very young children that are taking care of your own children who may be teenagers. Are you making them scared of marriage? Do you see that? Do you see your actions affecting them, and that this effect are lifelong? Do you consider the fact that when these children watch you behave this way, it affects their health to adulthood? Do you bother about the type of son you are raising, the type of daughter you are raising? It doesn't end with you. The community in which you live. Do you want to raise up an angry young man who is a societal mishap, or who is a danger to the society? What are your dreams as a parent? Speak out. It is very important to talk about domestic violence when it begins. There must be somebody to confide to. Can be a relative, can be a friend. Talk about it, look for ways. I know back in Africa, we have a lot of challenges. Women are not empowered and they are scared. If I go and report my husband, now he asked me to pack out of the house. Where will I go to? The father will say, I'm eating the bride price. I don't want you here. Please, women should learn to empower themselves. Make yourself useful so you don't rely on a man. Not today. Thank you very much. Yes.
Wow.
Thank you very much. That was very touching, very touching. Ambassador Lisa, we're coming to you to give us your last word.
Thank you, Nia-san. Yes, I encourage especially our women to educate yourself, to empower yourself, and especially empower your daughters, empower your sons, affirm them, tell them who they are, tell them what God says about them. When they know who they are, they will not settle for abuse. They will not be pushed, prodded, pressured, or bullied into relationships that they know are unhealthy because that's what you think they should have, because you endured, you think they should endure. This is a whole entire new generation, and they're not standing for the things that our mothers, our grandmothers, and great-grandparents went through. Try put some money aside. Always have a little nest egg. And I know, talking to women on the continent, because when I did a conference, I had a women's conference, 90% of the women who showed up, their questions were, can I leave my husband? Can I leave the home? And back then, we couldn't say nothing to them as Americans because we all had our own jobs. We got our own bank accounts and cars. Yeah. And we was able to bring ourselves there. We couldn't tell them women, yeah, you don't put up with that. So we have to begin to help them understand who they are, one, how to help empower themselves, make money for themselves, so that when they do come together as a husband and wife, if that's what they choose to do, they have a little nest egg on the side in case of emergencies. All women should have an emergency money. Empower yourself, affirm your children, so that that next generation that grows up will not have to suffer the same abuses that you suffered through. Thank you so much, Nia-san.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lisa. We're turning now to see if Dr. Crosslin is online now. Have you unmuted, Dr. Crosslin? Give us your last word. If not, we may just have to not.
That's okay. Maybe she stepped away.
Okay. Okay, Reverend Palm, it's your turn
Dr.
now.
Santos, or did you?
No, Dr. Santos will go last.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this has been very fruitful. Thank you. On behalf of Africa Online Media Corporation, Dr. Crosslin, Sister Debbie, Dr. Martha Taako, Dr. Nicolas Santos, Ambassador Lisa, that I rebuke that nosebleed, not anymore. Nia Song, of course, and all our viewers. The domestic violence, Dr. Martha went into this about all the other people that get affected by it, not just the direct victim. But we also need to remember that the health implications or the maladies, they go beyond the physical scars. Even more important, the mental challenges could be lifelong, even emotional trauma, low self-esteem, it could render people worthless. The scars, the emotional scars and the psychological scars are bigger than the physical scars, and they, if not properly managed, because some of these victims will not even let people know what they've been going through. They may go unresolved or unmanaged, and you end up with a damaged person. Not just the person, the children, even the maid, the houseboys. So think about it. If you are a perpetrator, again, we're not just talking about the physical one, and nobody will even dare. I grew up in a loving home. I've never experienced it, but I will not even let anybody try it. I will not even give them the opportunity. If a man raises their hands on you, they will do it again. If a man verbally abuses you, they will do it again. So you choose to how you let people treat you. Dr. Santos, over to you.
Not mine, Reverend Pam, but I can't tell you what I did to make sure it didn't happen.
Okay. Dr. Santo, your last word.
Thank you, Reverend Palm. Thank you, everybody here. It's been quite a fruitful discussion. I would like to draw one adage from the Bible to conclude my last talk, which is that for what will it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul or his or her soul? This means that if you see abuse, one of the main reasons of abuse is what Dr. Mata has pointed out. It is this aspect of dependent personality disorder. Dependent personality disorder. Anybody who gives you something makes you become dependent on him or her other than your parents. Now you become more of a liability. So the issue now is women are beginning to open their eyes. Men are also opening their eyes, and we encourage our children, sons and daughters, to learn the same, that they should work hard, hold your academics, hold your profession as your husband and your wife. First thing, it doesn't mean that you should not be married, but also try to be self-sufficient, as Ambassador Lisa has said. Have some money in your pocket, be able to take care of yourself so that no human being on earth can enslave you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santo, and everybody else who has participated in the program today. We are very grateful for coming in, and please just stay blessed and let us make it a holy week, and let us see the first week of the month of November, the month of saints, the month of spirits, depending on which side you want to butter your bread on it. It's either the Christian side or the spirit side, whichever. I know the last day of this month, people go out to celebrate things.
I don't celebrate that stuff. It's not a Christian.
So please let us focus, stay focused, and let us know that there is one who will take care of us if we trust in him. Thank you very much, and have a good week.
Thank you. See you next week, next month.
Bye for now.